Good morning. Good morning. I love the energy. Good morning. Yeah, I love it even more. Welcome to the 2019 IMSAloquium Student Investigation Showcase. We come together today to celebrate student curiosity. We will see the results of a year, perhaps more, of student work. We have poster presentations. We have oral PowerPoint presentations. I'm excited for the day. I will let the day speak for itself. I want to spend some time, before I turn this over to Eric Smith to introduce our keynote, I would like to spend this time thanking the people who make this day possible. We've served 200 students this year in the Student Inquiry and Research Program and the internship program. And next year we're looking forward to even more, so sophomores, come talk with us. There's a lot of work that goes into this day, and I have a long list of people to thank. I'll try to go through it very quickly. First and foremost, our advisors. Your gift of time and expertise is what makes these programs successful. I cannot thank you enough. And if you would like more students next year, let's talk today. Facilities. Our facilities staff in this building is incredible. From Chris and Vicki, especially Dottie Kret, who makes this day actually function, and all of the people who set up the rooms. And you'll see a lot of different situations in the building, all facilities people. So when you see them, please thank them. Our IT staff. These are the people who work behind the scenes. So Ralph Flickinger upstairs in IT has organized a great staff, and they have hopefully made the day run glitch-free. If, as a presenter, you have some problems, they're outside in the hallway. They're there to help. That includes Bill McGrail, Kevin Broy, who have given us the sight and sound today, including this mic. Especially Jean Bigger. Jean Bigger is the hardest working person I know. She has printed your posters. She has posted all of your work on Digital Commons. And she does it all with a smile and a calmness that helps us all. Kathy and the Sodexo staff, who have fed us on those late I days coming back from Northwestern, and also an excellent luncheon today. Our volunteers for today, whether you're moderating a room or whether you're directing traffic in the hallways, if you see somebody who looks confused and don't know where to go, help them out. Be a good host. Last, and I think for my part, most important, I would like to thank Kathy Coons, who is the administrative assistant for the SIR office. She has valiantly fought against my disorganization and made this day, I think, the very special day that it will be. Her foresight and her organizational skills I've come to rely on, and I thank you very, very much. So I hope you enjoy this day. It is a day that we get to be curious, all for free, with no grades attached. So enjoy that. I'd like to bring Eric Smith up to the podium so he can introduce our keynote speaker.
Good morning. I want to thank Don and Dave, my partners over in the SIR office, because we We have been surrounded by people who've done this before. You know, a lot of people that he just thanked, and the three of us were all very new, and so all this was learning on the job this year. So thank you, Don. And Dave, wherever you are. So it is my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Silvia Alvarez-Clare, who earned a PhD in interdisciplinary ecology from the University of Florida in Gainesville, Florida, an MS in botany, and also from the University of Florida, and a Bachelor's of Science in Biology from Universidad de Costa Rica in San Jose, where she is originally from. Dr. Alvarez-Clare worked as a postdoc at Argonne National Labs, where she is still a guest researcher, and she's currently a tree conservation ecologist at the Global Tree Conservation Program at the Morton Arboretum. And she has been the recipient of 3, by my count, National Science Foundation grants, including one she just won a few weeks ago. It's dated February, for research experience for undergraduates. It's a program where she's the co-PI with Dr. Chuck Cannon, so congratulations. Dr. Alvarez-Clare is also the co-leader of a local group that supports women in science called 500 Women Scientists. There's a Chicago chapter, and she is part of that. And she has mentored 3 IMSA students in the SIR for the past 2 years. 2 of them went with her to Costa Rica. And her research consists of long-term monitoring, manipulative experiments, and conservation-driven research to understand how environmental changes, such as changes in soil, nutrients, and climatic conditions, affect plant communities, mainly in tropical biodiversity hotspots. She strives to translate her research into science-informed conservation actions that will aid in saving tree species from extinction, and she is here to bring her message to us today. Please welcome Dr. Silvia Alvarez-Clare.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for such a great introduction and for having me here today. So today we are here to celebrate science, and I couldn't be happier or more proud, sorry, can you hear me? Hold on. I couldn't be happier or more proud to be in a place, in an activity, in an event that is all about research and inquiry and data, because in this time and age, that is truly an honor. But today, we are here to celebrate the transition of the SIR students, let's see if this has a, yay, from the SIR students from being science users to being science practitioners, to be from students that learn science in books to students that actually do science. And that is a big deal. So first of all, I would like to congratulate all the SIR students for their efforts. But as overachievers that you are, I am sure that you are already thinking about your next steps and how this great education that you are receiving here at IMSA is going to translate into a successful career in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, or whatever you choose to do with your life. And that can be really overwhelming. Finding your place in the world can seem so daunting and challenging. I know it did for me and still does almost every day when I wonder, where do I fit in this colorful, beautiful, multidimensional space? So the first thing I would like to start by saying is that try to do something you love. Try to find what is it that you are passionate about and that drives you, because success will follow, and then you will be doing something that hopefully will further this world and science. And my place in the world, I found, is with trees, and not necessarily on top of a tree like in this slide, but trees have been a core part of my career for a long time. And I think this is part because of where I come from in Costa Rica. Costa Rica has 5% of the world biodiversity. It has multiple ecosystems, and I grew up in a family where we would go camping, and my parents love nature. So I always felt really close to nature. However, I also got to see how some of my favorite beaches where we would visit, huge hotels were built, and some of the forests that we visited then became pineapple plantations, and I saw a lot of logging happening, personally seeing the trucks full of those giant logs. And so I decided that I wanted to do something about that, and that is what motivated me to study biology at University of Costa Rica. But when you think about what you want to study, I encourage you to see yourself in the big picture. And I know most of you are familiar with these Sustainable Development Goals. These are the United Nations goals for 2030. These are the big challenges of our time. These are your challenges. This is what you need to solve if you want your kids and the kids of your kids to be able to inhabit this planet. These are big challenges, but I encourage you to look at them and see how you and your career and your life choices are going to fit within these goals. So, for example, if you're thinking about studying medicine, maybe you can think about goal number 3, which is good health and wellness. If you are thinking about becoming an engineer, then maybe you can focus on trying to further industry and innovation or affordable energy, and so on and so forth. For me, I think that these are 6 of the goals that my career has focused on, and sorry about this thing. And of course, I didn't know this as I was starting my career because these goals didn't even exist. But as I look back now, I realize that I actually have made some choices that fit within the big picture and towards making this world a better place. And obviously, it's only a tiny, mini grain of sand, but it's better than nothing. So today, I would like to share with you some of the work I have done for the past 2 decades as a scientist, in the hopes that you can get some tips that maybe will help you as you navigate all the choices you have and as you start your successful and wonderful careers. And even if you don't find anything you like, that is very important, because it is as important to find things that we like as it is things that we don't like. So I remember when I was an undergrad in college, I volunteered or I worked in a genetics lab, and I got no guidance. The person in charge just gave me a pipette, a bunch of toxic chemicals, and told me to do a PCR, and I had no idea. And I was like, I hate this. I never want to do this, and I didn't. But it was very important to me, because if I hadn't had that experience, I would have never known, and maybe I would have spent 5 years of my life or something doing something that I don't like, and end up all frustrated. So, 2 things I do feel passionate about and that I feel my work has focused on are life on land and climate action. My work as an ecosystem ecologist focuses on how human causes change affect biodiversity preservation, biological systems, and also this informs our understanding of how climatic changes are going to influence these ecosystems. And why do we care about this? Well, everybody knows or should know that carbon dioxide is increasing, and I love this image because it is unequivocal. If anybody here can argue with me that this is not an increasing curve, then we got some issues. And this is the best and longest term data we have on global carbon dioxide concentrations from the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. Now, why is it important that this is in Mauna Loa? Because Mauna Loa is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This is in the middle of nowhere. And still, my students have seen this many times, and still we see clear evidence of an increase in the carbon dioxide concentrations in the atmosphere. And for those of you who are not so sure why we care about this, it's because carbon dioxide is a very important greenhouse gas, and it makes a blanket kind of around the planet, which causes the greenhouse effect that is going to lead to global warming. So the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is directly related to our temperature, which is directly related to our ecosystems and our climate and all what we are living as global change. But I also like this figure because it shows that plants are the center of everything. These little zigzag, you see how there are these little red zigzag? Does anybody know what that is not, my students? Does anybody know what these red zigzags are? All right, so these zigzags are the fluctuations in seasons. So every year, when it is winter and the leaves of the trees are gone, trees are not doing photosynthesis, which is the process by which the plants uptake carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and use that for growing and releasing oxygen. So when the trees are asleep in winter, we see an increase or a high point on the zigzag in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And in summer, when all the trees are growing, then they are uptaking carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, and that reflects in the global concentration of carbon dioxide. So this shows that what happens at a local scale is going to have implications for the global scale. And that's why I think this is a cool figure. Let's see. Maybe I have to go here. Okay, but not only carbon dioxide is increasing, we also have an increase in nitrogen, reactive nitrogen concentrations at the planetary level. And this is not N2, which is the stable inert form of nitrogen that is 78% of the concentration in the atmosphere. This is reactive nitrogen through emissions of fossil fuels and human activities that can cause acid rain and a lot of other environmental issues. You can see the concentration planetary-wide here in 1860, then in the 1990s, and this is a heat map, so the hotter colors means higher concentration, and here you can see the predictor for 2050. So we are also increasing nitrogen, and nitrogen happens to be one of the most important nutrients for plant growth. So we're pretty much fertilizing all the plants in the planet, which could be a good thing, but it's very complicated. And I'm not going to get into it, but just know that nitrogen is increasing globally. And also phosphorus, which is another of the most important fertilizers or nutrients for plants. So if you're going to add fertilizer to your plants now in spring, usually you add phosphorus, nitrogen, and a bunch of micronutrients, but nitrogen and phosphorus are the most important ones usually for plant growth. So phosphorus is different than nitrogen because it is not, it doesn't have an important component in the atmosphere. It is a rock mineral, and so it is in the rock underground. But when we mine it, such as in this picture in Florida, this big mine, then a lot of it is going to end up in dust, and it's going to end up in places different than where it's supposed to be. And it can also unintentionally fertilize forests or other ecosystems. So how are plants changing how are plants responding to these changes in resources? It's a big question. Specifically, what I have been focusing on is how do changes in nutrient availability influence biological processes in tropical forests? And now some of you may be asking, why do I care about tropical forests here in Aurora? I don't care. They can all go to hell. But but I am going to convince you that you should care about tropical forests because of two reasons. Tropical forests store, here we have organic carbon in gigatons of carbon above ground and below ground. And so we see that these biggest trees are tropical forests and tropical moist forests and wet forests and tropical dry forests. So they have the biggest storage of carbon in biomass, so in living biomass of the planet. Now, you know that boreal forests, for example, are super important in below-ground carbon accumulation, such as prairies here, too, are important. But above-ground carbon biomass is mostly stored in tropical regions. And second, they also are the best at recycling carbon. So here in this figure, you can see the slowest turnover to the fastest turnover. So tundra have the lowest turnover. The carbon is there, is static, not moving, but in the tropics, that carbon is going to be cycling super fast. The leaves are going to be produced, and they're going to fall down, and they're going to decompose, and they're going to do that over and over. So what happens in tropical forests is going to have implications quick. It's going to be fast. What happens there is going to influence global climate or what's happening at a global level. So what I did for my PhD, I started this experiment to answer this question, which is called EFFECTS, Earth Forest Fertilization Experiments, because it is at a university in Costa Rica called Earth, which is Escuela de Agricultura de la Región Tropical Húmeda. So it's an agriculture school, but they have a forest reserve there, and they let me go and fertilize the forest. So I set up 24 large 30-meter by 30-meter plots, and I did a complete block design, which is I had 4 different treatments. I added nitrogen and phosphorus, some nitrogen, some phosphorus, some nitrogen and phosphorus, and others were left as controls. And then in each of those plots, we measured each tree, we marked them. Here you can see measuring trees in the tropics can be really challenging. Then we put these baskets to collect litter fall and estimate how much leaves are being produced. And then we separated all these litter fall into reproductive litter fall and leaves and stems. And we also put ingrowth cores to see how much roots were responding to fertilization and see if they were dead or alive. And we measured everything you can think of. And we have been doing that for a long time. Hold on. Oh, wow, my graphs are not showing in this thing. Whoa, okay. Well, they were there. This is a Mac, so that's what I was afraid of. I told them, this is great. So, well, okay, you can imagine that there are 3 graphs there that show what we found. Okay, I can just tell you. So what we found is that overall, when you look at tree growth, there was not a strong response to fertilization. However, when we zoom in and look at the trees by size, the smaller trees did respond strongly to fertilization. The little trees were the ones that seemed to respond only when we added both nitrogen and phosphorus. And then, when you look at species, these are the 2 most common species in this forest. Pentacletra macroloa is a legume, so family from the beans, and they fix nitrogen. And then the other one is a tree palm, and is the most abundant stem in this forest. And interestingly, as you cannot see, Pentacletra responded to nitrogen, but Socratea responded to phosphorus, so they did not respond the same. Oh, this one shows, woohoo. So then we also looked at nutrient concentrations in leaves. And why do we care about nutrient concentrations? This is the amount of nutrients that is found in the leaf, so in the leaf of the trees. And usually trees, if they have more of one nutrient, they take it as reserves and keep it in their leaves. So that can give us an integrative measurement of what has been happening for a while, because sometimes when we just look at the soil, it's like at one point in time, but the leaves took a while to grow. And so it can give us an indicator of what is happening in that ecosystem. And I know this is kind of a lot, but what I would like to focus on is each of these is a species, okay, each color. And so you can see foliar nitrogen, foliar phosphorus here, and control plus nitrogen. So we added nitrogen, we added phosphorus, and we added both nitrogen and phosphorus. And you can see that, first of all, the colors are different, showing that not all species have the same concentrations. They have different concentrations, but also the responses are different. So if you focus on the purple here on the bottom, you can see, for example, that these 2 are smaller than these 2, showing that, again, Socratea, the palm, responded to phosphorus, but that the responses were not the same across species. But what about understory plants? What happened to those? They are an important part of the ecosystem. So if you are interested, make sure that you go to Irani and Mary's talk at 10:45. They have been working for 2 years on this project. They went to Costa Rica, collected leaves from understory plants and also tree seedlings, which are baby trees, and process them and analyze them, and have done a wonderful job. And they are going to present their research today. And also, what about the neighborhood in which a tree is? What about if there's a big tree next to you, or a little tree, or if you are really close together or separated? And that is what Alana is investigating through computer modeling. And she is also going to present her update today. So make sure to go to their talks. They're going to be awesome. So then what did we find after 12 years? This is a summary slide, and the green means that there was a significant response. And I just look at the big picture here, that green is all over the place. So these are many variables that we have measured. I didn't talk about it, but we measure things like soil respiration, greenhouse gas emissions through the forest floor. And here is like the Nanny and Mary measured nutrient concentrations in understory plants. And so we have been doing this for 12 years. And the take-home message is that responses are all over the place. Some things didn't respond at all, others respond to everything, others only to nitrogen, or on other things only to phosphorus. So what does this mean for our sustainable development goals of life on land and climate change? Well, the first thing is that biodiversity matters. Tropical forests are not black boxes that respond in unison to nutrient additions. Species matter, and we need to consider forest composition and forest structure when we are trying to understand how a given ecosystem is going to respond to a change. And this is the case for nutrients, but could also be the case for other things such as water or light or contaminants. And second, we need to be patient. This has been going on for 12 years, and only now are we starting to see some significant responses on some of the variables. We are on tree time, and a tree that lives for 300 years does not care about a dissertation or a master's degree in 2 years. Finally, these nutrient changes are likely going to influence what is going to happen at an ecosystem level and at a global level because of what I explained before of tropical forests having such a big influence on the global climate. So another of the goals that I have been focusing on through my career is quality education. And mainly I have been working as a mentor for a long time, which is, I think, a key part of a quality education, especially in STEM. Part of my job at the Morton Arboretum is the academic mentor for the Center for Tree Science, and we have the Integrative Tree Science Mentorship Program, where our mission is to mentor the next generation of tree scientists. And why is this important? Well, there is evidence that shows that students that are active in research like you are and that actually do science before they graduate are more likely to go into a career in STEM, self-identify themselves as scientists, and also are more likely to go to grad school. So some of the things we do is work with you here at the SIR program, which also Christy Rollinson works and Chuck Cannon mentor students. And also, we just got, Dr. Smith was talking about our REU site. We got awarded our research experience for undergraduate site at the Morton Arboretum, where undergraduate students are gonna come each summer, and we have already been doing it, but not through NSF funding. And they experience research with their mentors, and then we have a symposium just like this at the end. And they can also come back and finish their research if they need more time. And so we're trying to give them the opportunity to have that hands-on experience. But I think I have been doing mentoring since I remember. I remember as a grad student in Florida, and I was bringing these REU students, undergrads, to my site then. So I encourage you to all be mentors, because I have had such great mentors in my life that have supported me and encouraged me, and I think their contribution has been huge. And I feel it's my duty and responsibility to give back by trying to be that mentor to other people that come behind me. And I think you all have people that you can mentor, even if it is your little brother and sister or kids that are a couple years younger than you. So I encourage you all to take your role as mentors very seriously. A big issue in our times is inequality. Inequality can take many different forms. It's a big word too, so let's just understand what it means. Inequality refers to giving everybody the same tools for success. So here on the left panel, we see what we have now in some cases, which is the tallest person already having 2 of the boxes, while the little guy here doesn't even have any of the boxes and can't see anything. So when we talk about equality, we are talking about giving everybody the tools or the boxes so that they can see the game. Now we need to reach equity in some times, which is even may require extra help for those who need it the most. The UN doesn't even try to get to that point because globally that could be difficult, but I think we can try to do that at a smaller scale when we can. And equality sometimes means even representation. This is a figure from the National Science Foundation from 2017 report. They put out these reports every 2 years, and these are data from 2015. They just put out the new one, but I use this one. On the right side here, you can see US population divided by ethnicities and gender. And on the left side, we have the proportion of those professions that, of those populations that are in science and engineering careers. So, for example, we have white men here are 31% of the population in the United States, and 49% of them are in STEM careers. But if you are a black man, you are 6%, only 3%, so half of the people that technically should be in STEM careers are there. And if you are a Hispanic or Latina like me, then our population is 8%, but only 2% are in STEM career. So we need more of those groups to reach a level of equality. And we're not talking equity, because that wouldn't make any sense, right? We don't even have enough people to feel that. It's all about equality. So remember, everybody giving the same boxes. It's not like we want to give 10 boxes to one person, but at least everybody needs to have equal representation proportionally to their representation as a population in the country. And even at high-paying STEM jobs, women are being shortchanged. Women are only paid 82% of what their male counterparts are paid, and only in engineering, and only 87% in computer jobs. And we are not talking that they have less experience or that, no, these are same people, same experience, same CV, everything the same. Just because you are a woman, you are more likely to get paid less than if you are a man. And that is not fair. So what can we all do about it? Well, the first thing that we all need to do is acknowledge it. And this is a problem for everybody. I want all the guys in the audience to understand that this is not just a female issue. This is an issue for all of us. First, because it's not right, and we are all striving to be in a more fair world. But second, these are your mother, your sister, your daughter in the future. These are the women in your life and half of the population. So we should all be aware that this is happening, understand implicit bias, which means that we sometimes, even without realizing, are making biases and assumptions. So let's try to consciously think, hey, I shouldn't be thinking that just because she's a Latina woman, she can't think. I mean, I have had many stories of people telling me that I shouldn't even be doing science, that I should just be a nurse because I would be so good with people. And if I wanted to be a nurse, well, that is great, but I don't want to be a nurse. And just because of my ethnicity, I should not be put in this case and in this box. So let's all try to open our minds and think about just letting people be whatever they want to be. And your generation is way better at this than we were and the people before me. Then adopt a partnership mindset. Let's try to include in your classroom. If you're doing a group project, make sure that everybody and that there's good representation. Let's try to invite girls and boys and everybody, that maybe that kid that nobody invites. Let's all try to work together and make space for equal voice. Say something. If you see that discrimination is happening or inequalities, say something. Don't just stay there. And get involved. And just for 1 second to the female audience, the males just is only one slide. Girls, get involved. So this is a group that I am part of. It's called 500 Women Scientists, and we have a Chicago chapter and a West Suburbs chapter. And you can join. We actually, I think some of you already are part of this, but our mission is to serve society by making science open, inclusive, and accessible. But there are many women's groups in almost all STEM careers now. So there is the Women in Engineering group and the American Medical Women's Association. And I really like this one, Girls Who Code. I have been to a couple of school science fairs, and they always go, and they're so energetic. I think they just got a grant from L'Oreal, and they have, I don't know if you have seen it, but there's this video on YouTube of like, oh, you can be pretty and code too. And they have like their lipstick and everything. And they're like all coding. So, I mean, just find whatever appeals to you. And then you have your own Girls into STEM, which is great, and you're going to have your mixer in a couple weeks, and I hope I can come. I came last year, and it was great. So get involved. But we are always better together. The problems we have in this planet are just too big for anybody to solve on their own, and not even one organization. We all need to collaborate. And a great example are trees, which is what I work with. From the 60,000 tree species that we have in the planet, more than 17% are threatened with extinction. And from those, almost 2,000, 1,900, are critically endangered according to the United Nations, to the IUCN, which is the International Union for Conservation of Nature. So this is a pretty big problem that not only one place is going to solve. So, oops. Yeah, sorry. So at the Morton Arboretum, we have the Global Trees Conservation Program, and I work there as a tree conservation ecologist, and our mission is to prevent tree extinction through global collaborations. We leverage academia, botanic gardens, industry, and local stakeholders towards conservation of threatened tree species. And some of the institutions that we work with are the Global Trees Campaign and Botanic Garden Conservation International, but we work with a lot of partners, and it's all about trying to come together towards a common good. And one example that I really like is this project that I'm working on right now, that if anybody is interested in working on, talk to me afterwards, because we may have space for a SIR student for next year, which is conservation of Quercus brandygii. This is a big, beautiful oak tree that is very important in the ecosystem in the very tip of Baja California Sur, which is the tip of the California Peninsula. So this is actually right there. And I mean, this, you can't really see it that well, but it is right there. And it only occurs there, in the tip of the peninsula. And so it's endemic. That means that it only occurs there. It's kind of rare, and it is very associated with these rivers, which are rivers, they're dry the whole time, and they only, when there's hurricane season, they all fill out and huge, like it's crazy. This is like the desert, it's all dry most of the time, and then there's a hurricane, it rains like crazy for a couple days, and these rivers fill out from these mountains and just take everything in their path. And these trees, the Quercus brandygii, they are called Encino arrojero, or creek oak, are associated with these creeks, and they live on the sides of these creeks. They are very important because they are a huge source of protein for fauna there, and people there, the most people around the area are ranchers, but it is so crazy. The ranchers, they are ranchers that have cows that are all over the place. There's no fences, there's no nothing, just cows, goats, pigs. You walk around, they just have their little bell, and they know each day, they call them to their stable like at 4, so each cow knows to which farm to go, but they're all together around the river or anywhere during the day, and they love the acorns from these oaks. So, one of the big problems we think is this grazing by animals. So here you can see this is the oak, and you see all the cattle kind of resting underneath it. It's also a huge, it's very important for shade. And also, so when we have done studies before, there's no recruitment at all. That means that there's no baby trees, no seedlings. So these are pretty much relics, right? Because if you have a big tree that's 100, we couldn't find any tree that was younger than 100 years. So it looks like there was a big recruitment event like 100 years ago, and now there's no young trees, no baby trees, and we thought, well, maybe there's no acorn production, but there's tons of acorns. So we are trying to figure out what is going on. The goals of the project specifically are to, as I said, identify what's preventing regeneration. Also, increase ex situ representation in botanic gardens and arboreta. So what we did was we collected a lot of seed, and then we distributed all the acorns to different, now we have 14 botanic gardens in Mexico that are growing this tree because it was found nowhere, so at least there's a reserve of the trees, and then also inform future in situ conservation. And this is where huge collaboration comes into play. We collaborate with the University of Morelia, la UNAM, then Centro de Investigaciones Biológicas, which is a research center right there in Baja. We have Sierra La Laguna, which is a biosphere reserve where most of the distribution of these species is, and also University of Minnesota. These are just some of the collaborators. And we have done different activities, such as a demographic study, which means that we went and measured all the trees, and this is how we found out that there were no trees probably less than 100 years old, collecting seeds, as I mentioned, and also we are conducting propagation experiments to figure out what is the best way of growing this tree so that we can try to reproduce it for reintroduction efforts. And we are also doing these exclosure experiments, and we also are doing interviews with farmers to include them and to try to empower them so that they are also involved in conservation efforts. So it's all about collaborating and trying to work together with the local people, with international organizations, so that we can all work towards trying to save these species from extinction. Okay, so what have we learned overall? Just to recap. Find your place in the world by trying different things. Don't be afraid to try different things. Think about your career and how it can contribute to the greater good. See yourselves in the big picture. Work hard and don't be afraid to fail. If things are seeming too easy, that means that you're not risking enough and you're not pushing enough. So you should fail occasionally. All you, just because of being here, I know, are so smart and have what it takes. Don't ever doubt yourselves. It is okay to mess up. It is okay to sometimes things are not going to go your way. And I cannot tell you how many times in grad school I have seen these super bright students and very intelligent and capable people just not succeed because they are their worst enemies. They just get into these dramatic, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I am a failure, and then nothing is really happening except for themselves. So just take a step back. You're okay. Maybe this day didn't go well, but tomorrow is a new day, and I got this. So please, always trust yourselves. This is, for example, my field work was so challenging here. This is me trying to even get to my field site, and trees are falling, so now I can't even get there. I haven't even started my day, and then my car would break down. I was like best friends with the mechanic that I'd have to go, and then rain is always a problem. I guess that's why they call it the rainforest. And when I was finishing my PhD, there was this giant blowdown, and 2 of my nitrogen plots got fully destroyed. Only 1 tree left and 2 trees left on the other plot. And I thought this was the end of the world. But you know what? It wasn't. So now I have 22 plots, and there's only 4 replicates for 1 treatment, so what? You know, we still publish the papers. It's okay. So then make the world you want to live in. Don't be complacent. You need to take action. It is your job to make the world that as you like it. So, yeah. Collaborate, always. You can't do anything on your own. And communication is key. These times of scientists being in the ivory tower, doing their lab work and doing their science and just working on their scientific papers and talking to each other, those times are over. We really need to engage our audience. We really need to show the world that STEM is important, that it's what's driving them, that they are all benefiting from it, and it is our job to do it right. So you find however you want to do it. You do it through art, do it through social media, do it through comedy, do it through writing, through writing in the newspapers. Find an outlet that you enjoy and communicate your science. That's your homework, everybody. And so if you're still confused and still have no idea what to do, we at the Morton Arboretum, my collaborator Jessica Turner-Scoff created a podcast called Planted, Finding Your Roots in STEM Career. And I gave Betty some of the cards also, but you can find it in YouTube and download it from the Apple Store, and it's free. And you can listen, and it's not only for plants. And they interview different people that have chosen different career paths and talks all about making decisions and tips. And so it should be something fun you can listen to while you go running or do something. And if nothing of this helps, at least always go back to listening to the trees, because they're really old and they know what they're talking about. So stand tall, drink plenty of water, be content with your natural beauty, enjoy the view, and remember your roots. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions. So if anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer. Questions?
Sylvia,
Yes.
we're going to have to move on their schedule.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Let's thank Dr. Alvarez-Clara again. So on behalf of the SIR staff, Dave Duvall, Eric Smith, and I, and the internship program staff, Kelly Page and Betty Hart, we hope that you enjoy your day. The first concurrent sessions are just about to start, so let's have at it.